Ascender's agency. I need your help. My business associate Weaver and 2 employees set out on an expedition to Mount Everest. I haven't been able to contact them for a week. I'm worried something happened to them on that cursed mountain. I need you to find out what's going on, but be careful. The mountain can be unpredictable.
I can see the top! Keep climbing! Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome to the demo for Ascenders Beyond the Peak by Ludogram and Twin Sails Interactive. A turn-based tactical roguelite climbing simulator with some light Lovecraftian elements. There's a few here and there, though it's hard to say exactly how heavy-handed they intend to get with it long-term. And, while I do have some general concerns with the exact overall presentation, I've got to say that is definitely a concept unique enough to catch my eye. So I did feel like it was worth showcasing. That said, we're running through a fairly on-the-rails tutorial here, so we'll just run through that. Should give us a pretty good overview of exactly how everything works. You can read the tutorial pop-ups for exact context. Scout, try to reach that ledge. Roger Dodger. Alright, so right now we're obviously just navigating the standard movement grid, albeit vertical as opposed to the conventional horizontal. And as we also just saw, stamina doubles as our health. It is literally our lifeline keeping us on this mountainside. Once it runs out, we fall. And then, you fare about as well as anyone falling off a mountain would. Which is to say, that's where the permadeath comes in. Scout, use your rope to pull me to you. Another core mechanic using the safety rope to reposition allies. Nice. And as it states there, we can now rest on this sledge for a moment to recover some stamina. Though there is a soft timer. They'll talk about that a bit later, but yeah, you generally don't want to wait forever. Watch out! Falling rocks! Take cover! Well, I would, but our Pathfinder decided to go up on her own volition directly under the falling rock, so, what am I going to do? Try to play along, I suppose. Do my utmost to keep our tutorial team alive. Oh no, who could have possibly seen this coming? She's too heavy! I won't be able to carry her for long! Keep climbing! I'll attach her back onto the mountain. Tutorials, where characters make terrible decisions, so that we can learn, and also sometimes feel sad. Come on, let's get you back in a bind. Yeah, you can see there, though, that once someone falls off, that is immediate dire straits. I will say, if I were controlling the characters completely here, I would park the scout on a ledge, which is a much more secure place to recover from. Thank you. Come on, let's get this over with. Right. Extraction zone dead ahead. Just gotta reach it. Come on, y'all. Hibbity hup. You'll also note there is an outer range to how far our characters can move from each other when they're actually secured. Though if the line does get cut, like we saw one of our characters get completely detached when those rocks fell, then there is no restriction on how far away they can move. Though, of course, then you also lose the functionality of the safety rope. And if that character gets knocked off the cliff, there's no coming back. Yeah, and see, as soon as anyone reaches the top, it gets easier for the rest of your crew. And we're good. First leg of our ascent complete. I'm sure it'll only get easier from here. Though we do still have a ways to go. Expeditions consist of multiple climbs. Which brings us to the camping screen, where we rest and recover between rappelling. Still no trace of the Weaver expedition. We're wasting our time. They must have frozen to death by now. If there's even a tiny chance they're still alive, we have to find them. And time to rest. And I mean, it's fairly straightforward. You know, I feel like 9 times out of 10 you're just going to have your characters rest in the tent. Because characters doing anything else will usually suffer long-term fatigue, which, you know, directly increases the difficulty of your subsequent climb. But there are cases where it might be more strategic to do something else, you know, which is where a lot of this other stuff comes in. Plus, of course, certain characters simply have more base fatigue than others, and thus can afford to do other things more often. Such as, for example, gathering resources overnight. You can build specialized stations, which can serve a similar purpose, but can also be used to remove temporary status effects like illnesses or sicknesses. But in this case, we'll keep it simple, because that's what the tutorial is telling us to do. We'll have everyone rest up. Though note that resting removes 2 levels of fatigue, so in theory you could stagger it out, you know, do something different every other night. If you're willing to live with the consequence. And then everyone has to eat, which is fairly straightforward. Just match or exceed the total listed. The exact amount needed varies depending on exactly who and how many you brought on the climb. You can bring up to 6. Good to have backup climbers, but obviously that also drastically increases the amount of supplies needed each time you stop to camp. And on we go. Looks like we've got an event up next. A Mountaineer's Dilemma. Means we have to make a choice. While crossing through a mountain pass, you discover the Weaver Expedition Camp. Or rather, what is left of it. The tents are in tatters, as if they had been clawed by a wild animal, their contents scattered by the wind. At first, you find no trace of the climbers. Then one of you motions towards a ravine, encouraging you to look down. 100 meters below your position, 2 corpses lie among the stones. Okay, which leaves us with a choice. We can either take some extra fatigue to search the camp, possibly find something useful, or we can take a slight risk to instead go down and examine those bodies. Which, you know, does sound like the more interesting of the two. You climb down and easily reach both bodies. They're grasping at each other, as if they were fighting before having fallen. In the hand of one of them, you find gold nuggets of exceptional size. Hey, nice. Yeah, not much practical use, at least not out in the field. But between full-on expeditions, you can sell stuff like that to make some extra cash, which in turn is used to improve your climbers, improve your equipment, etc. But that moves beyond the scope of the current climb, plus the current demo for the most part. For now, it's just important to recognize that in order to actually cash that in, you have to be carrying it all the way to the end of the expedition. On we go. Second leg of our climb, and we are now seeing resource nodes. In this case, moderate food and light crafting materials. Good thing, too, because we are in dire need of food. Obviously going in with the same team, now blessed by that apple. Though this would be the point where we could swap in backup climbers if need be. We're almost out of provisions. Grab whatever you can. Right, on it. We've got a backpack just above us and some berries off to either side. Oh, wow. And then, of course, individual character skills can affect or influence the amount of things you actually find. Just seeing a node. All right, you can also destroy cliff faces using your pick. Though I will say, if you just hit it once like that, you have to wait a full round for it to fall off afterwards. If you attack an already loose piece like that a second time, it will fall immediately. But yeah, as far as individual nodes go, you're not always guaranteed to find something. And when you do find something, the exact quantity or quality is influenced by the RNG. It's all a calculated risk. Let's go ahead and grab these berries, since we know we need them. Well, I mean, once it lets us. We are still on rails. Scout, grab everything you can. We'll see you up higher. Yoink. And yes, as I mentioned before, each different character type has their own unique abilities. In this particular case, the Scout can pick up 2 objects per round as opposed to just 1. Or they can pick up 1 object and then still have their action point available to do other things like pick an adjacent cliff face or pull in an ally, etc. You know, that is an incredibly useful skill, which is also why they, in theory, have less fatigue than the other characters. Come on back now. Wait, I see more bushes, a little higher. And there's our Scout's other special ability, the grappling hook, which lets them leapfrog over otherwise impassable terrain, such as these chasms in the cliff face. Or, you know, just to eke out a little extra movement if you have an action point to spare. And there's our soft timer, yes. It doesn't just cut you off at any point, but what it does do is that beyond a certain point, you start taking extra fatigue every turn or two, which of course makes things much more dangerous moving forward. Though there are some characters who can deal with that better than others. We haven't really touched on it, but every character does have a randomized occupation, which grants them 2 passive traits, some of which can potentially ignore the night climbing penalty. Though, you know, in this particular case, we're going to try to make it up top before it becomes an issue. Unstable edge under the Scout. Still counts as standing, though, but just for the 1 round. And hang tight. Grab those last couple of berries, then we'll haul you back out. And we can also just barely make out a gold vein off right, behind that cliff face. Which means we'll have to bust it out. Either that or go all the way around, which is maybe more practical, but also a lot more time consuming. Yeah, we'll see if we can make it straight through. Though we also do need to keep track of that stamina. Highlander's almost out. Alright. Let's crack this thing open. First swing destabilizes, but we'll need a second to get through. Or, you know, we could cool our heels for a round. Though that's less ideal, since we're just 2 turns out from nightfall. Shoot. I was hoping you'd be able to reach the ledge. Alright, fair enough. We've got something else, top left. Go for gold. And this as well. Sadly, nothing. Like I said, it is at least somewhat beholden to the RNG. And let's reel our guys in. They do play it a little fast and loose with the length of that rope. So, you know, you have a bit of flexibility. There are a lot of little idiosyncrasies with how the different mechanics interact. Okay, let's wrap this up. Once we get one character up there, it makes it easier for everyone else. And we are good. Another nice, easy one. Though, you know, it's not about any individual climb. It's about the scale. We're in this for the long haul. And here we get an object lesson on why it might be a bad idea to load up on too much loot. Since, of course, that would mean leaving a lot of this other stuff behind. Food, crafting material, both pretty vital. Or occult artifacts, though that whole mechanic isn't really implemented just yet. We were lucky to find food. I was worried we'd end up starving. We were too reckless. We can't just rely on luck. Indeed. Which leans, of course, right into the other camp functions. In this case, building a structure. And, you know, given our current issues, well, yeah, we'll start with a cooking pot. The rest are probably beyond the scope of the tutorial. We don't really need more crafting materials. And we certainly don't need a first aid tent, at least not yet. Though I will stress, much like any other station aside from the tent, while putting someone on the cooking station will spare them the need to eat, it will also prevent them from resting. So, as with many things, a bit of a trade-off there. And then, for the crafting, about as straightforward as it gets. It doesn't really matter what materials you use. The only thing that matters is that you equal or exceed the total required. Let's see if we've got anyone who's actually ideally suited for that. Starting with Sam here, our Highlander, who is a hunter. That doesn't really help us. Followed by Elizabeth Bouchard, our Pathfinder/burglar, who gets Insomniac and Night Owl. So, a 1 in 5 chance to not get rest at night. But then also the very valuable Night Owl trait. Oh, okay, which does not make them immune to night climbing penalties, but rather does not increase fatigue after each climb? Huh. Which might make them the ideal character to put on the cooking station then, because they have a 1 in 5 chance of not resting anyway, and if they don't gain... Well, no, they definitely gain fatigue, because we can see down on the bottom, one of their pips is still flashing red. And then we've got Julie, our scout and former convict. Wow, that's actually a pretty terrible one to have on your scout. Agoraphobic is -2 movement outdoors. And having high movement is like the main thing for a scout. That's just bad luck. Though Brawler might come in handy, in theory, if we encounter any hostiles out here on the trail. Alright, well, based on what we just saw, definitely not an ideal mix, but we'll go ahead and toss our Pathfinder on the cook station, and the rest can rest overnight in the tent. Though I don't think Nocturnal is working properly, because we can see our character is still getting fatigued. Though, of course, as always, I should highlight this is, in fact, an early access, inherently unfinished demo. There are bugs and placeholders aplenty. This is really just more of a proof of concept. One of you is struggling to get up this morning. The fever they contracted during the night has made them lethargic and almost delirious. Ah, great. Okay, so which one? Oh, Elizabeth. Well, I guess it wasn't so safe to stay up all night after all. Story of my life. A lesson I have learned many a time, and still consistently ignore. Ah well, on we go. Unexpected encounter. Luck smiles on you the moment you start to lose hope. You come across a ravine, the silhouette of a man barely visible, hundreds of meters below you. As you peer down to get a better look, the man signals you to be careful. The rocks around him seem on the verge of collapse. He's trapped, the mountain rumbling ominously at his slightest movement. I mean, definitely not worth the risk of being afflicted. We can spare the supplies. We've already got one person who's sick, we don't need more. Using your supplies, you make a rope and lower it to the man, who then grabs it. You pull him effortlessly towards you, and after catching his breath, he thanks you. You have found Herman Weaver. As you prepare to head back down the mountain, Herman stops you. We have to keep going. I can't leave now. One climber has joined the expedition. Hey, bonus. Alright, let's get a look at this guy. Herman Weaver, Escort. A famished man who survived alone on the mountain for a few days. A cultist with the cursed and grave robber traits. Yeah, that's probably fine. Oh, and he's hungry and injured. Okay, right. Well, guess we won't be getting you out in the field anytime soon, but, you know, still good to have a backup, I suppose. Also, sick. Lose one stamina point when using skills. Though, actually, now that I'm looking at it, you do not have an active skill. You're supposed to have, I want to say a horn there? Interesting, which kind of means the sickness doesn't actually do anything to you because you have no special skill that would trigger it, though you do still have your passive cartograph tools. Yeah, every character type is supposed to have one active and one passive. You know, like the scout with their grappling hook and their ability to pick up 2 items per round. Okay, well, regardless, we push on, and now that we have another mouth to feed, methinks it's best to go the route with more food. Oh, Hector, love the spirit, buddy, but let's get you out of there. Alright, well, that is slightly problematic. He appears to have forced himself into our active expedition crew, not content to simply sit back and let us carry. Well, in that case, let's move our Highlander to center. A nice, solid person who can reel people in as needed. And then we'll put our scout on the end to scoop resources a little quicker. Since, I mean, honestly, given his current condition, Hector's not really going to be contributing on this run all that much. And we now have free reign. The bulk of the tutorial has ended, so now we get our first full freeform climb. And thus we will use the lessons we have learned. And hopefully come out on top. Bit of a steep learning curve, but you know, you pick it up pretty quick. I do feel like a lot of it's pretty intuitive, despite the unusual premise. Up, up. Up the ziggurat, lickety-split. Ooh, okay, we've got some food. Let's make sure we grab that. That would be very nice. Right, come on. We do need to branch out a bit, though. I want to see what's top left. Though, wow, that was an easy climb. Not a lot of resources, though, so I mean, food is going to become an issue if we have to go much further. We just get a quick peek off left. Huh? Yeah, guess that's it. Not a lot of food, but also a fairly simple climb, so I suppose it could certainly be worse. We'll build a cook station if we have to. And we're good. Oh yeah, you can see your current active effects, bottom left. I don't think I noticed that before. And yeah, we're good on food, at least for one more climb. Herman, we found the bodies of the rest of your team. What happened to them? Alan and Roel, it started as a fight over gold. And then all of a sudden they flew into a mad rage and fought to the death. And you didn't do anything to try to stop them. It's what the mountain wanted. Oh, okay, well, yeah, that sounds, fair enough, I guess. That's fine. I guess that explains that. And, you know, since we've got some, supplies to spare, let's go ahead and craft ourselves an extra piece of gear. As we saw, the fog of war, the vision range can be a bit of a hindrance, so we'll do the spyglass. Just need to slot in 5 or more crafting goods. And we'll use the smaller one since those are less space efficient. There we go. We'll now have a spyglass for our next run. And I mean, there's other stuff we could also craft, but I feel like that might be a bit overkill. We don't have too much farther to go. Plus, as aforementioned, I believe anything we have left in our inventory at the end of a run is converted to cash. Get some rest. We could build an infirmary, treat Hector's wound, but we're not going to worry about that. A disappearance in the night. The night passes without incident, but in the early morning you realize that Herman Weaver has left camp. Well, Herman, it was nice knowing you. Have fun being crazy. On we go. Oh wait, we were supposed to actually recover this guy, weren't we? I'm sure it's fine. Although the snow covered Herman Weaver's tracks, you manage to find his trail. It takes you to the top of the mountain. The rocky ridges that surround you look like majestic towers destroyed by time and weather. Or is it your imagination playing tricks on you? Suddenly, the silhouette of Herman Weaver stands out from the ridgeline. Turn back! The mountain considers you unworthy. It forbids you to reach the summit. The man punctuates each of his sentences by stamping his foot on the ground until the crust of snow starts cracking, bits of it detaching from the cliff face. I warned you. We're continuing on. And once again, back on rails. Just in time for our first hostile. That bodes well. No! Stay back! So aside from just the general tactical mountain climbing, the game also features an ever-escalating series of obstacles, hazards, and outright hostile creatures, human or otherwise. The mountain curses you! He's completely lost his mind! It's a shame, but it's either him or us. Hey, we didn't pick this fight. But we'll ask him to stop. No, Elizabeth! We could have probably planned that out better. I'm gonna fall! Are you? I mean, I guess. It is worth noting that when someone's hanging like that, it costs 1 extra fatigue and does reduce your movement, but I feel like we could still potentially salvage the situation. They seem to be jumping straight to sacrifice. Like, in theory, we could move over and then have our Highlander come down to re-secure. But, you know, there's no accounting for sheer panic or pre-scripted tutorials, so... Sorry, Elizabeth. The blizzard is coming! We have to get out of here! Oh, right. Okay, you know what? No, there was no way we could have survived that. At least not with our scout surviving. Yeah, I didn't even clock that. The blizzard also adds additional stamina cost to clinging to surfaces. So yes, our scout would have actually run completely out of stamina and fallen with Elizabeth. So that was actually a situation where we had to cut her loose. Though, her falling in the first place, of course, was entirely avoidable. So, you know, still death by tutorial. Always a rough way to go. It is a good lesson, though. You know, knowing how to do it and knowing that sometimes you have no choice but to cut someone loose for the greater good. And once someone is gone like that, they're just gone. The game uses autosave and permadeath, which, you know, is a bit of a mixed bag itself. Some people love it, some people hate it. A lot of people like me are somewhere in between. Another interesting side note here, though, is that in cutting our Pathfinder loose, we've also lost our safety line, which makes the rest of this climb all that much more perilous. No more pulling, no more second chances if someone runs out of stamina. Definitely makes an already unfortunate situation all the more dire. But we are good. Come on, guys. Pour one out for Beth, and I guess one for Herman. Truly, this was a mountain of madness. Well, I guess you don't have to worry about being down with the sickness anymore. Also, I guess that does explain why you had no active skill, like an actual Pathfinder is supposed to. You were just a tutorial character. We do get to keep the other two, but I've got to say, I'm not crazy about the randomized traits, so honestly, if we were to continue with this particular campaign, I would probably at least push Julia, the scout, to retire. Ascender's Agency? Alexander Armacos speaking. I received your expedition report. What a sad end for Herman. I'll miss him. He was so excited about that expedition. He thought he would finally discover one of the obscure artifacts that obsessed him so. He traveled across 5 continents in search of them, convinced they possessed a power capable of transforming the world. Imagine if he was right. His research must not die with him. Find those artifacts for me, and you will be handsomely rewarded. Which, of course, is our hook for the main campaign. And from here on out, there is more demo, but it basically lapses into pretty standard procedurally generated climbs. Essentially giving you the basics of the game's ultimate planned gameplay loop, but sans storyline or a lot of the other more advanced mechanics like storage, full-on training, the artifact auction house. You can recover artifacts in the current demo, but you can't actually hand them over to the various factions that want them, which I imagine is how you would ultimately steer the game towards one of 3 potential conclusions. Each of the factions, of course, having their own particular plans for what to do with all that primordial power. Oh, wow, we didn't even get XP for that. Yeah, fair enough, I suppose. Some hard lessons were learned, but no experience gained. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We could push on to another expedition, but I mean, honestly, I feel like the tutorial covered most of the bases as far as the basic gameplay goes. You know, you've got your infirmary for treating long-term afflictions, though a character has to sit out a full expedition for that to work. You've got your workshop where you can build extra stuff between runs. And then the radio station, which you use to recruit new climbers. You get a pool of 3 randomized potential recruits each run. Though in this case, we only got scouts and a Highlander, though there are some slight differences. This one's a trapper, which makes them claustrophobic, and a monster hunter. Again, not necessarily a great combo for a scout, but better than the one we've got. Especially if you avoid the caverns and tunnels, which I tend to do anyway. Let's see what else we've got here. Ashraf Clevenger, Highlander Doctor, with Insomniac and Thorough. Increases the amount of resources gathered. Huh. Not what I would have expected from a doctor, but sure, why not? Wonder if that's just a placeholder. It feels like a doctor should get bonuses with treating sick or injured teammates. Sam Holbrook, Scout and Shepherd. Keen Eye. Extra 2 space visual range. That is fantastic for a scout. That would definitely be the new scout we'd bring in. Though I will say, I'm a little disappointed we're not seeing some of the other recruit types, because I know there's at least 2 or 3 others. The Pathfinder, of course. Would have been nice to verify what their active skill was. And the Sapper, who is basically a mid-tier climber that also packs explosives, which can be used to remotely destroy cliff faces or injure enemies. Albeit at the cost of making the actual cliff faces less stable, potentially even impassable. So very useful, but one of those things you definitely need to use sparingly. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's Ascenders Beyond the Peak. Or at least the demo. The unfinished demo, I should note. Obviously, this stuff will presumably be more streamlined and more fleshed out for the full release. And I've got to say, it's a very intriguing concept. I have a few concerns, like how quickly the whole climbing shtick might become repetitive in longer campaigns. It does feel like the individual expeditions might be a little too long-winded for your standard roguelite formula, especially one so unforgiving, as to have autosave and permadeath. From what I've gathered, the average expedition is anywhere from about 7 to 12 nodes long. So, you know, a few bad rolls on the event table or with resource drops, and it could theoretically become pretty frustrating and unforgiving, especially considering how slowly your characters tend to gain XP. But, you know, too early to really judge that, since obviously we're just seeing an early access alpha demo. And from what I'm seeing, definitely a lot of promise there. But, you know, that's just my opinion. That said, I encourage you to go check out the demo yourself. As of the moment I'm recording this, it is still available on Steam. And be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below, both about the demo, about the game, and whether you might like to see me come back to this one, either just to do one procedural run, to perhaps showcase a few more of the mechanics, or possibly even for a full campaign once the game hits full launch. Though I will say, I'd be a bit hesitant, I think, unless they give me the ability to rename the climbers. If we're going into a permadeath roguelite, I would definitely want to toss some raiders in the mix, just to get us more invested. Who knows, if there's enough demand. Maybe I'll see you then.